alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello everyone. For this video, I'm going to be going over the module on chapter 8. I'll be going over the first page, questions 1 through 6, to hopefully give you a better understanding on how to solve questions like these during your exam. Bismillah. For question number 1, we're given a radical expression, and it says to calculate the fourth root of 14 plus the cube root of 6 plus the square root of 4. Now, when you have equations like these, you have to start with the innermost and then work your way outwards. So the square root of 4, if you know, is equal to 2. It just means what number squared or what number multiplied by itself gets you 4. 2 multiplied by 2 gets you 4. Okay? So we're going to write down our steps so we don't get lost during our exam. It's important to write down your steps, okay? So the fourth root of 14 plus the cube root of 6 plus the square root of 4, which is now 2. So 6 plus 2 is 8, so we're going to write fourth root of 14 plus the cube root of 8. The cube root of 8, it just means what number multiplied by itself 3 times gets you 8. And that one is also 2. 2 multiplied by 2 gets you 8. Now, if you don't know these, you can go back to page number 16. There's the popular square roots and popular cube roots, and it's important to memorize these or know them before your exam. Okay? So now we're going to write this down as the fourth root of 14 plus 2. 14 plus 2 is 16, so you have the fourth root of 16. The fourth root of 16 means which number multiplied by itself 4 times gets you 16, and that one is also 2. It's 2 multiplied by 2, 4 times gets you 16. Okay? So, also, they're never going to give you a fourth root of an insane number or a number that cannot be broken down, right? They're always going to give you a number that you can do without having to use a calculator. And this one should be. So, for number 1, our answer is C, which is 2. Okay, number 2, we're given a sequence of 6 numbers, and we're going to have to find the 7th number. So there's a pattern here, and you have to know what the pattern is. So if you look at the numbers, right, to go from 2 to 3, you have to add 1. From 3 to 5, you have to add 2. From 5 to 8, you have to add 3. Okay? Now, people might say to go from 8 to 13, you add 4, but no, you have to do your math correctly. Go from 8 to 5, you have to add 8 to 13, you have to add 5, and 13 to 21, you have to add 8. Okay? Now, what's the pattern here? The pattern here, if you can see, if you add 2 and 1, you get 3. Okay? 3 and 2, you get 5. 5 and 3, you get 8. And 8 and 5 should get you the number that you should add to 21, and that is 13. So you have to add 13 to 21 to get 34. And B is our answer for number 2. Okay, for this question, right, you'll get a lot of questions like these where you have to compare between column A and column B. They're very popular in the exam. So now you're given a negative base with a high power, right? And they don't want you to sit here during the exam and try to solve and try to find the answer, right? Because it's going to take you the whole exam trying to do negative 6 multiply it by itself 6 times, right? So they're trying to see if you know the rule. Now, the rule says if you have a negative base with an even power, your answer will be positive. When you have a negative base with an odd power, your answer will be negative. Okay? So if you go back and look, we have negative 6 to the power of 6. Now 6 is even, so it will be positive. And here we have 11, which is odd, and the answer will be negative, right? And so since positive is greater than negative, A is going to be greater than B, and A is our answer here as well. Now, here's the rule. If you want to take a screenshot or write it down somewhere, it's important to memorize this rule. Okay, now we have number 4, and we're asked to compare between column A and column B again. Now, with multiplication, from both sides, you can easily cross out the common ones, right? So we have 31 on both sides, cross out 32, 33, and 34. What we're going to be left with is 35 over 5 and 30 over 6. If we simplify this down, as saying 35 divided by 5 is 7, and 30 divided by 6 is 5. And we know that 7 is greater than 5, so A is our answer for number 4. For number 5, there's two ways of solving this question, right? I'm going to show you both ways. Now, when you add roots, it's saying as if you're adding variables, where you have a coefficient in front. So this is same way as saying 2 square roots of 10, right? And square root of 20, we're going to have to break this down and simplify it. Now, what two numbers multiply each other, where one of the numbers we can find the square root of? Now, what do I mean by that? So what numbers multiply to each other give you 20? We have 1 and 20. Now, can any of these numbers we can find the square root of? No. How about 2 and 10? Can we find the square root of any of these? No. What about 4 and 5? Yes, we can find the square root of 4, right? Because this is a popular square root as well. So the square root of 4 times 5. We're going to take 2 outside and we have the square root of 5, right? And we know that square root of 10 is greater than the square root of 5, so A is greater. Now, another way to solve this is by drawing a number line. Right? You draw a number line and you plot down the square root of 10 and here the square root of 20. Now, what's the nearest square root of 10 from the left? What's the nearest square root from the left that we know of? And that's the square root of 9, right? Because the square root of 9 is 3. Now, what about from the right? We have the square root of 16, which is 4. So we can say that the square root of 10 is between 3 and 4, and it's closer to 3.1. So the square root of 10 is above 3.1. So if we substitute this in, 3.1 plus 3.1, we should get about 6.2. Okay? Now, the square root of 20, we know is between the square root of 16, and the next popular square root is the square root of 25, which is 5. So we know that the square root of 20 is between 4 and 5, right? We'll say is about 4.4. Now we know that 6.2 is greater than 4.4, so therefore A is our answer as well. And this is another way of solving it, but I wouldn't advise this unless you're stuck or don't know how to break down the square root of 20, for example. There's something you don't know how to break down, then I would suggest you do this method. Now, for the last question for today, we're given an equation of x equals y plus z, and we're given the value of z, which is -1. Okay, and now we're going to substitute each column into the corresponding variable. All right, so 1 over x equals y plus -1. As you can see here, we're still left with two variables. Now, when you have two variables in an equation that you don't know the value of, there's no way of solving this. So for that case, we are not given enough information because we don't know the value of either x or y, right? And we can't solve this to know which one is greater. So therefore, number 6 is D, not enough information. Thank you all for tuning in, and hopefully you guys learned something from today.